start with a question for the both of you. How surprised were you to see Notre Dame come in at number 10 in the first college football playoff rankings? O'Malley, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I had them 9, with behind Michigan and ahead of Wake Forest. So I guess 10. I was surprised to see 10 because not only because I had them 9, I just didn't think that Wake Forest would jump them. It does make sense. I'd be talking out of both sides of my mouth if I said that undefeated Wake Forest doesn't deserve to be ahead of Notre Dame. Yet I'm surprised undefeated Oklahoma is as far back as they are, and Cincinnati's as far back as they were. Those were the 2 surprises for me. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised Alabama was number 2, but I was.
Prister, your thoughts on the rankings?
Yeah, I thought 10 was fair. I too thought it would be 9th. I thought either Michigan or Wake Forest would be behind Notre Dame, but Michigan's played better football than Notre Dame has, more consistent football, each with 1 loss. I think we're all a little surprised that Oklahoma was 8th, although they haven't played real quality football and have struggled against inferior competition. And Wake Forest is the top team in the ACC. I think they deserve that. So not shocking. Brian Kelly said he was a little surprised at number 10. I think anything below that would be a little bit too far down the list.
So, Tim O'Malley, let me ask you this. Is there a path for the Irish to get into the playoffs from where they are right now?
Yeah, there's a path because it includes chaos, but we have 5 weeks as well. I think if I were to look at just the 10 teams, maybe remove Notre Dame from this, I think there's 5 losses in that group, those 10 people, or those 10 teams right now. There could be 6 losses in there now. You could go as high as 7 because, first of all, Michigan State has to play Ohio State. Ohio State has to play both Michigan State and Michigan. I mean, Michigan State's a 3-point favorite at Purdue this weekend. It doesn't seem like that's possible because of what we know about Michigan State in the second half against Michigan. But Las Vegas knows more than we do about the overall approach to Michigan State's abilities. I really think I would be surprised if Oklahoma doesn't lose a game. Georgia could knock out Alabama, we think. We talked about that a little bit. Maybe not with 2 losses, but we think they knocked them out. And I just don't think anyone's all that safe except for Georgia, and Georgia does not affect Notre Dame's path to number 4.
And O'Malley, of course, there's been a lot of talk about a college football playoff expansion this week. Is that the best way for the future of the game?
I mean, I think it's the best way for the group of 5 to get in. I think it's the best way for the most people to be happy. I would caution people that we are in the middle of a tremendous 3-month playoff that is college football. It's basically a double elimination tournament nowadays, and I think that's why it's so fun to, before you run out to the Notre Dame game, watch the end of Michigan State, because you're not eliminating somebody if that game isn't a loss for one of those 2 teams. Not everyone's super excited if Oregon goes and takes the pole position and wins at Ohio State. Now, when they both have a loss, one of them is not going to make it. I think we're in a 3-month tournament that I prefer, but if you're a Cincinnati fan, you disagree with me. I understand that as well.
We continue the Irish Illustrated Report with Tim Prister and Tim O'Malley. And Tim Prister, let me turn to you with this one. The improvement that we've seen on the Irish offensive line over recent weeks, is that because of them or is it because of the defenses that they're facing?
It's definitely a combination. There's no doubt that Notre Dame's offensive line is better than it was 3 games ago. The insertion of Joe Alt at left tackle and Andrew Kristofic at left guard, they are playing. All you have to do, you look at the film and you see how cohesive this group has been the last couple of weeks. Go back and look at the first half of the season. It's a very disjointed offensive line. There's no doubt. Also, no doubt is that the defenses that Notre Dame are facing both the last couple of weeks and coming up aren't nearly as good as the ones in the first half of the season.
O'Malley, can the Irish actually lose to Navy today? And who on the middies gives Notre Dame fits today?
No, I don't think they'll lose the game. I also don't think Notre Dame's going to play particularly well. After the excitement and the 2 night games, the crowd was really into the USC and North Carolina games. The players were into it. It's really hard to bring your own juice every week in college football. And I've seen this stadium in November against Navy. It doesn't look like it did these last 2 weeks usually, and I don't think it will. And Diego Fagot is a great linebacker for Navy. Brian Kelly talked about him. He's 10 tackles for loss this year. He'll make plays out there. The fullbacks, Harris and Ruoff, I think this is a fullback year more than a quarterback year. You don't have the Keenan Reynolds and Ricky Dobbs of the past, and Malcolm Perry were the outstanding athletes. I do think Navy is just improving enough, and Notre Dame's human nature comes into play where I would never say Navy would beat Notre Dame in this situation, but I think it's going to be closer than the point spread suggests, and a lot of people think.
Okay, so going off of that, you said that you don't think they're going to play that well, and what do you think is going to happen then?
Yeah, I mean, I still think Notre Dame kind of walks into this game with 4 touchdowns. When they play Navy, I just don't feel like they're going to pile on 5 and 6 to get away. I think you're looking at 7 or 8 possessions. The key for Notre Dame is Notre Dame's defensive line has veterans, Kurt Heinisch, Myron Tagovailoa-Amosa, and Jason Abiola, that have played Navy and are built for Navy. And I even think the linebackers, when you think of Kaiser and Bo Bauer, Bertrand and White, those players are built to stop this. A little concerned about the secondary without Kyle Hamilton trying to stop Navy, but I am in the kind of a maddening score for Notre Dame fans to sit and watch in the 30-14 range, where they just never really get away from a team that they probably could in other circumstances.
PP, do you agree?
I basically do. I don't think emotionally Notre Dame's going to reach a peak here. I don't know how they can with what happened the last 2 weeks, and then knowing you have to go to Virginia and score a whole bunch of points next week. I also think the defense is a little banged up on the second level. But having said all that, this is not a typical Navy team. They're struggling in a lot of areas. I like their defense. I like their defensive front 7. O'Malley mentioned the linebackers. Fagot is good. There are others there that are really good. I think it's lower scoring, but the possessions, again, comes into play so frequently in this series. I think it's a little bit lower scoring. I don't think Notre Dame pulls away. I'm looking at a 33-16 score in favor of Notre Dame.